Hello everyone, welcome to another Fun Fact Friday. I'm Dr. Sam, we're here at University Animal Clinic, and today I have my little friend with me. This is Joe, and we are going to talk a little bit about reptile husbandry today for Fun Fact Friday. So reptiles, when we talk about husbandry, we're talking about their in-home care. So their enclosure and then all that goes around that. There's a lot of things involved in keeping a reptile as a pet. And so some of them have to do with the size and shape of the pet itself, how old they are, because a lot of these guys can start out really small, like this water dragon, and get to be quite a bit larger. So you have to kind of consider, are you going to get multiple enclosures as they grow and get larger, or are we going to keep the same enclosure the whole time and we're going to start with a larger enclosure, which is okay, but just know that going forward what you're going to do. So the size of the enclosure is one thing. Also something to consider is glass and the front glass. So it can take a lot of work with a reptile to kind of make them feel at home. A lot of these guys can't see the glass, and so to them it's, invisible. So they don't know that there's this barrier, and a lot of them will kind of go at something they see in the reflection, something like that, and hit the glass. And this can cause damage to their mouth if Joe won't show us his face, but if you could, you can see he's got a little bit of this going on from hitting the glass. And his mom has taken a lot of care to put things in front of that to prevent him from having that kind of reaction. But that can happen. You could put tape in front of it or lots of plants, things like that, to try to prevent them from seeing that glass as an issue, and so they won't strike that invisible surface. The other thing to consider is the substrate that they're on. So are they on sand, paper? Personally, I know it's not aesthetically pleasing, it's not pretty, but I think paper is the easiest to clean, the easiest to take care of. But if you want something that looks a little bit prettier, there are different kinds of woods and sands. Just be careful with some creatures. A lot of geckos do great on sand, but if they go to strike at a moving mealworm or something like that, they may pick up some sand with that. And over time, too much sand can cause obstruction. So you have to be really careful about how much sand they may possibly be ingesting. And then, of course, one of the most important things in our reptiles, but often forgotten or not thought too much about, is the heat and humidity. So our reptiles, of course, are ectotherms. And what does that mean? Is that these guys truly rely on external heat for their heat source. They do not generate an internal heat. So they need sun, they need light, these kinds of things to help generate heat. This heat has to deal with their metabolism, their appetite, how well they defecate. It has to do with so much of the internal workings of these guys that without that, we of course know that they can die, but they can also, just without enough, not function properly. And some of these are such a slight tweak. So whether it's 80 degrees or 85, 90 degrees. And a lot of those temperatures do depend on the species. So this guy likes it to be kind of in the mid 80s, maybe even a little higher, with lots of moisture. But you got to look at your species because it really depends on what reptile you're dealing with. Are they an arid species and like it maybe a little bit drier? So definitely talk to us here at University Animal Clinic. We can give you some insight into your species specifically and what they may need. And so looking at these lights, we also have to pay attention to the spectrum. So it's not just they need the heat, but UVA and UVB. These guys need that spectrum of light to be able to convert vitamin D3, which they can get from their food, into calcium. So if they can't use that spectrum light to convert that D3 into their calcium, then these guys can have something called metabolic bone disease. And this metabolic bone disease can change the way their face is shaped, the way their bones are shaped. Their bones can become brittle and they can be more prone to fractures. Or when they're young, like this guy, like Joe, they won't grow properly. Their hips and legs won't form properly, and they can have difficulty walking, and they can end up dragging their back legs. They can have even tail issues and things like that in their spine. So important that they not only have that right amount of heat, but also that full spectrum of light. Another key for heat and light for these guys is 24 hours a day. So they need this light, especially as indoor, most of the time when we're holding these guys indoors, to help with their day and night sequencing. So making sure that they have that nighttime. So most of us turn their lights off at night, which isn't wrong. The problem is the way we air condition most of our homes, most of us are keeping our homes in the low 70s. And most of these species like to be, even at the coldest point, in the high 70s to low 80s. And so most of these guys will need an overnight heat lamp. And they do make ceramic lamps that emit a decent amount of heat. Not a lot. We don't need it to be a basking area at night, but just enough to keep them warm. Because then when they wake up in the morning, we turn their regular lights on. It doesn't take them so long to get from 70 degrees back up to that 85 where they want to be, and that's when they want to be hungry and eat and do their daily activities. So if we don't have that overnight heat, it takes them too long to warm up to an appropriate temperature and then want to eat. And we have issues with these guys wanting to eat, things like that. And so making sure that we have that properly. And then the last portion of their husbandry is going to be humidity. And again, that's going to be very species specific. These guys like it, these Chinese water dragons, as their name would suggest, like it to be a little bit more moist, a little bit more wet. They want either a water dish to soak in, that kind of thing. Depending on the species, if you have a more arid species that's more desert climate, they may still need a little bit of moisture, but maybe not nearly as much. They may not need a full soaking dish. They may just need the occasional spraying, or my favorite, using some spragum or another kind of moss, moistening that and putting it either in a hutch in there, and then your heat keeps those things warm, which then generates some heat and humidity. There are great gauges that you can purchase at the pet store so that you know what the heat and humidity is in your enclosure. I also suggest making sure that they're where the animal is and not up by the light, because that may give you an incorrect reading as to what the temperature is where your pet is, down maybe a little bit lower in the enclosure. So making sure that those are in an appropriate area to know what the temperature is where your pet is. So from us here at University Animal Clinic and G.I. Joe here, we just wanted to give you guys a little bit more information about reptile husbandry, because I know there's a lot of information out there, some of it great, some of it really confusing. So if you have questions, give us a call here at University Animal Clinic. We'd love to see your reptiles. I love seeing all these different guys, bearded dragons, geckos, to the Chinese water dragons, and even chameleons. We see them all, and they all have different little particulars about their species. And so knowing specifically what your species needs can be the key. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you a little insight into having reptiles as a pet, because they can be pretty fun. And if you have ideas for the next Fun Fact Friday, put it in the description below. If you have a picture of your reptile, I would love to see him. Throw those pictures in the comments. I want to see those too. Give this video a like and a share. Share it with your favorite reptile horticulturalist, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks.